You are listening to the Brought to Light Masonic Podcast, a podcast for Freemasons and the public, bringing you to light through discussions and research papers about Australian Freemasonry and the Victorian jurisdiction in particular.
Welcome back to the Brought to Light Masonic Podcast. I'm your host, Brother Jack Aquilina, and this is episode 12 of the podcast, which is quite an achievement considering the fact that we've come through 12 weeks of about 1.5 episodes, all of which have provided some pretty good content. This week's going to be a pretty relaxed week. We've got a big couple of months ahead. As I mentioned in the end of episode 11, September is going to be a practical month. We're going to be looking at practical things that you can do after you finish your third degree. And what happens once you become a Master Mason? You finish that journey and there's so many opportunities. And sometimes you can get lost in what it is you want to do versus sometimes what other people want you to do. So we're going to have this month focusing on that. And we're going to be including an interview with Worshipful Brother Matteo Donato, who is also a member of the Board of General Purposes here at Freemasons Victoria. He'll be giving a discussion and sort of an interview about organisational leadership. So you can look forward to that. That's going to be very, very interesting. And we're also going to be having a interview with a brother who runs a Lodge of Instruction, soon to be announced, and he'll be talking about some of the officers in the lodge. What are they? How do you become an officer? Some of the responsibilities of office, and also what happens if you don't become an officer, and some of the opportunities you can take in the lodge by not being an officer on the floor or within the various positions. So a very exciting month ahead. And then we have a fantastic and exciting month in October. We've named October Innovation Month, and we're going to be talking about the topic that I know that we're all interested in, and that is, what is the future of the craft? Where are we heading? What is our organisation doing? And what can we do to really make it something special? And I can very proud to announce that we have some very exciting interviews. I'll be interviewing Brother Robert Johnson, Worshipful Brother Robert Johnson, I should say, who hosts the Whence Came You Masonic podcast, which is a very popular Masonic podcast in the United States and around the world, who has been a good friend and a good inspiration to myself and been a big supporter of the Brought to Light Masonic podcast. And I'm going to be getting him on, and we're going to be having a chat about what is Freemasonry and what are we trying to achieve, and where does he see our organisation going. And I look forward to being able to talk to him about that. And thank you to Rob for giving me your time. I look forward to interviewing you. It'll be good to catch up. It's been a long time since we've had a chat. I'm also excited to announce that the host of the Masonic Roundtable, Worshipful Brother John Ruark, is offering to come onto our show, believe it or not, to discuss the results of the great Masonic survey that he ran in the United States and across the world. See, John is really keen on statistics. He understands the power of data and information, and he's put together probably one of the most credible Masonic surveys. And what it did is it gathered very important data about what people feel about the craft, where they think it's heading, and some of the reasons they see people leaving, or what sort of things we can do to improve. And he's actually releasing this data on about the 2nd of October, or the 1st of October, I think it is in the United States, at a conference he's doing. And the very next day, he's allowing me to interview him so we can get a fresh scoop into what that data is, what sort of things it's telling us about Freemasonry, and how it's going to sort of indicate our direction for the future. And thank you to Worshipful Brother John for offering to be on this podcast. He tells me he listens to our episodes every week, so we're really privileged and honoured to have that. So thank you, John. Also, we're going to be interviewing, and I'm really excited to announce this one. This is something that I'm really excited about. We're going to be interviewing Brother Jason Lewis, Brother Larry Maris, and Worshipful Brother Pete Ruggieri, who you might recognise are the hosts of the Masonic Light podcast, which is more of a fun podcast based on the sort of the fun trappings of Freemasonry. And they're based out of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And it's going to be a fantastic episode. We're going to have a lot of fun, and we're going to be talking a little bit about the humorous side of Freemasonry, but also about where they see the craft going in the future. So it'll be really interesting to hear their thoughts. And also we're going to be hosting a couple of events here in Victoria. We're going to be hopefully opening a forum, which will be open to all young members of Freemasonry and all any interested brethren or members of the public who want to talk about Freemasonry and what some of the challenges are. Because we believe engaging people is really important. And the only way we're going to be able to shape ourselves for the future is by having an open dialogue with all members and people of all walks of life. We'll be hosting a sort of like a roundtable discussion with some of the brightest, most enthusiastic young minds of Freemasons here in Victoria. We'll be talking about some ideas for the craft in the future. And we'll also be trying to get in touch with some of the country's most renowned Masonic professionals who have dealt with this issue and asking their views about the future of the craft as well. So October, probably leading into early parts of November, is going to be really exciting. We're going to have a really awesome set of shows. So I apologise if this one is not quite up to that standard. But I thought we'd have a bit of a relaxed episode this week, which is going to be focused on the theme of Masonic burnout. So, as we all know, with life, it's not just Freemasonry, we get committed, and sometimes things take up our time. We have competing obligations, competing commitments, and the theme of this episode is going to be about how do you ensure you prevent burnout, how do you sort of face the challenges of Freemasonry and life in general, and how do you manage your time? And that's going to be really important, especially for those who are thinking about joining. Freemasonry, like anything in life, is a commitment. And when you make commitments to things, sometimes those commitments can come in conflict. So I really hope you enjoyed the episode. We'll be reading an article that was written by a Freemason in New South Wales, a young fellowcraft Freemason, actually, who wrote a brilliant piece. I look forward to reading that. And we'll also be reading a couple of pieces from the Midnight Freemasons blog, which is the best Masonic blog in the world. It's called midnightfreemasons.org. It's actually edited by our good friend Brother Robert Johnson, who is the host of the Whence Came You Masonic podcast. And there's a few names in there in the articles I'll be reading that you'll be recognising from other Masonic forums. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. We'll start off by reading our first article, which is written by Brother Robert Johnson, which is called Is the Honeymoon Over?, which is an article that's been published on the Midnight Freemasons. I hope you enjoy. Is the Honeymoon Over? By Midnight Freemasons contributor Brother Robert Johnson, the host of the Whence Came You Masonic podcast, as published on the Midnight Freemasons blog, www.midnightfreemasons.org. I wrote this and thought, man, if this wasn't a self-affirmation, I don't know what is. Below comes from the heart, and I hope it doesn't pertain to you, but if it does, well, keep going. You petitioned with eagerness and anxiety. You got the call that you were voted in. You received your first degree and thought, okay, not exactly what I expected, but cool. You proved your worth somehow and another, and you were told that you'd be receiving your second degree, and more excitement filled your brain. You received your fellowcraft degree and thought, wow, that was a bit more involved, really cool. Then you make your regular progress, and you were told you'll be receiving your Master Mason's degree, the highest level in Freemasonry, you are told, ad nauseum. After the third degree, you sit in the lodge and ponder all there was in the degree. The lessons, the symbols, and the incoherent rambling of a lecture you won't understand for years. But one thought trumps all. You are now a fully fledged official Freemason. Congratulations. Fast forward to your first unfavourable thoughts of the craft, which started to enter your mind. You remember them. At first you thought you could just sweep them aside like crumbs on the floor. You've been in long enough now to see that the less favourable peculiarities of the institution you once thought would make you a truly better man. Every organisation has its flaws, and now you see them. Squabbling over bills, dealing with the unwavering dogmatic religious requirements by varying jurisdictions, replacing the carpet, local lodge politics, cliques, appendant bodies playing tug-of-war with base lodge members. The honeymoon is over. Just like real life, though, now it's time to get to work and do as Red says in The Shawshank Redemption. Get busy living or get busy dying. We come to these times frequently after being involved in the fraternity in a multitude of areas. We serve our lodges and deal with the constant shutting down of ideas, although some stick and work out, fueling you for the next implementation. You then get involved and you move around the lodge, district, maybe even the Grand Lodge, serving as a committee man or chairman, overseeing issues galore, all the while cursing this thing and loving it at the same time. This is the beginning of Masonic burnout. Typically this happens to our new members, young or old, who want to hit the ground running. The one thing we need to remember, though, is that this is your time to shine. New members will see your zeal, they will see your servant leadership, and they will see your tenacity in getting things done and pushing the craft into the next age. You might be struggling to reconcile membership or involvement after coming in and going strong for 2 to 5 years, and now seeing all the internal dynamics. It's easy to get disenchanted. The important thing to remember here is that we have all been in this situation. When the thoughts about the fraternity in some way make you wish you didn't have to be involved, and even maybe even thinking about walking away from it all. Don't do it. Keep pushing. Keep on making your voice heard, and change will come. And things, like life outside the fraternity, will get better. Be the example. You are the keystone. And that was a really inspiring little piece by Robert Johnson. I'm just going to read his profile as he's put it here on the Midnight Freemasons, just in case you don't know who he is, and that way you can get an idea of who exactly Robert Johnson is. I'll just read this. Brother Robert Johnson, past master, is the managing editor of the Midnight Freemasons blog. He's a Freemason out of the 1st Northeast District of Illinois. He currently serves as the secretary of Waukegan Lodge number 78, where he's a past master. He also serves as the education officer for the 1st Northeast District of Illinois. Brother Johnson currently produces and hosts weekly podcasts, internet radio programs, Whence Came You and Masonic Radio Theatre, which focuses on topics relating to Freemasonry. He's also the co-host of the Masonic Roundtable, a Masonic talk show. He's a husband and father of 4, works full-time in the executive medical industry, and is also an avid home brewer. He's currently working on a book of Masonic essays and one on occult anatomy to be released soon. So that just gives you an idea of exactly who Robert Johnson is, and it really relates to the article. He's talking about burnout. He's talking about that thing in any aspect of life where you dedicate yourself and you overstretch yourself a bit too much, and you find that you're starting to regret what you're doing. And as you can see, Rob is really active. He does a lot of things, and like a lot of people, and I'd like to include myself in this, sometimes you can stretch the compasses a bit too far. But this is a lesson in Freemasonry. We talk about the compasses. Think about it. You can do this at home. Grab a couple of pair of pencils, maybe tie them together with an elastic band, and put one in the middle of a piece of paper and put the other one out and draw a circle. Now that dot in the middle of that circle is you. That's where you are, the center of your universe. And that circle on the outside is an idea of where your limits are. Now for some people they're really close. For some people they're really far. Sometimes they become close at certain times and they grow bigger as you learn things or you're able to find more available time. And the purpose of that lesson is not to overstretch yourself but to know where your limits are. But as people say all the time, sometimes you don't know where your limits are without first touching those limits. So think of it that way. Your journey through Freemasonry is really a personal journey, and there's no right or wrong. Be wary of the fact that you can overstretch yourself in some respects, but it can also be a good thing because you find out where your limits really are. It was a really good article, and Rob really hits that point. If you are burnt out, persevere. Remember why you joined this organisation. Remember the benefits. It is easy for us to focus on some of the sort of, the small minority of issues that do bother us. And every organisation has them. I think Rob delivers a really good message. What we're going to do now is we're going to read another article, which is also from the Midnight Freemasons. And that's written by Worshipful Brother Adam Thayer. I'll just read you his profile so you get an idea of who Adam Thayer is. Worshipful Brother Adam Thayer is the Senior Warden of Lancaster Lodge number 54 in Lincoln, and as a past master of Oliver Lodge number 38 in Seward. He's an active member of the Knights of St. Andrew, and on occasion remembers to visit the Scottish and York Rites as well. He continues to be reappointed to the Grand Lodge of Nebraska Education Committee, and serves with fervency and zeal. He is the sub-host, or I'd say co-host, of the Whence Came You Masonic podcast, and may be reached at a certain email address. He will not help to get in touch with you, and I'm sure that Adam Thayer will be able to assist you with any questions you have. If you jump on the Midnight Freemasons blog, you can actually access his email address. We won't read it out over the airwaves just in case it's not supposed to be read out, but Adam Thayer, just to sort of give you an idea of where he fits in, he's actually the co-host of the Whence Came You Masonic podcast. When Rob Johnson is busy and can't actually do the podcast, Adam steps in. And as much as I love Rob, and I listen to his episodes every week, I love it when Adam's on. Adam is... He's precise, his episodes are really interesting, he has a practical edge of Freemasonry, and he's someone that's worth reading. So if you ever get the chance to read something produced by Adam, I suggest you do read it. And without further ado, we'll get stuck into Adam's article, which is called Recharge, as published on the Midnight Freemasons blog. I, like many of you, am a nerd. Now let's not fight it. We're on a website devoted entirely to education on a relatively obscure topic. You probably have at least half a dozen other tabs open in your browser right now, unless you're reading this on your phone or tablet, in which case you're using precious battery power to further your education. There is nothing wrong with being nerdy. The 1980s, where we were skewed by pop culture, are far behind us. Being a nerd, one of the most satisfying feelings in the world is seeing a cell phone and tablet batteries at 100% charge. Now, I know from a technical standpoint this isn't the best way to prolong my battery life, but I also know it makes me unexplainably happy to hit the power button on my phone and see that it's fully charged and ready to go. I forgot to charge my tablet last night. It was an incredibly long day after an incredibly long week, and I just simply forgot to plug it in. When I woke up this morning and realised what I'd done, there was definitely a moment of disappointment in myself. Even though I'll be spending the day with my wife and daughter, and will probably barely touch my tablet, it's still nice to know it's fully charged and ready to go. Right now, it's roughly 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning. My battery sits at 79%. As a side note, yes, I do get up stupidly early on the weekend. It's the only time I have to write, due to the aforementioned beautiful wife and daughter. 79%. That is plenty of battery left to get me through the whole weekend, and yet it feels like I need to conserve every bit of power it has. I have no idea why my mind works that way, but I'm willing to stake my writing career that at least one or two of you will feel the same way. It's especially silly considering if I could put it on the charger right now and solve the problem, but it is the wrong time of day to recharge. Devices should be charged at night and not in the middle of the day. So here I am, on my third cup of coffee, staring at this tablet with 78% battery power, cursing myself for forgetting to charge it, and even more for being crazy enough that I can't charge it during the day. Watching a terrible 80s horror movie, one of my other guilty pleasures and another reason I get up so early on the weekends, wondering if I've got enough power to get through the day. If only I read books on the tablets instead of watching videos and surfing the net, and I find myself asking this important question. How is my Masonic battery? You see, we all have a limited amount of energy to put into our efforts, work, family, friends, civic efforts, Freemasonry. All of these things eat away at our batteries, leaving us worn down, sapped of strength, not even wanting to go outside and see other people. We all have to determine where our energy is best spent, how much time I decide to dedicate to work, how much time to my friends and family, etc., etc. In a perfect world, we'd all be able to keep up with everything, without needing to worry about running out of strength. But in reality, we all realise that we need to maintain our strength, and put our efforts into where they will be most valuable. We have to metaphorically, and in some cases literally, stop watching the 10th cat video, so we can spend some time studying our ritual work instead. In the past, I've said that going to lodge helps recharge my batteries, and while that was true in the past, and surely will be true again once I'm through being an officer, right now it's a significant drain on my energy and patience. I'm not complaining. I'm beyond honoured at being asked to serve my lodge in this way. But the reality of the situation is that being an officer in an especially active lodge will age you very quickly. Brother Robert Johnson has said to me in the past that being an officer is a full-time job. And that is definitely true in my lodge. We meet up nearly every week and always have something going on to keep us occupied. It can get exhausting. In the recent past, we have featured a few articles about Masonic burnout, and you don't need to see anyone to know it's about an issue we all face. Instead, let's just use the reminder about how important it is to keep your battery fully charged so you don't get too worn down to continue perfecting your ashlar. I'm now on 5 cups of coffee. Midway through a second movie, my daughter is awake and ready to take on the world, and my battery is at 75%. Having spent this past hour or so writing to you, knowing that these words will help someone out there who is struggling, my Masonic battery is fully charged. So I have to ask, how is your Masonic battery? And that was a great article by worshipful brother Adam Thayer, and I hope you really enjoyed that. It does touch on a very similar topic to Rob Johnson's first piece, but it sort of emphasises maybe a different perspective about, burning out and overstretching yourself. Rob sort of talks about this idea of, being overwhelmed by the sort of annoying parts about organisational structures, whereas Adam sort of uses this concept of, batteries. It was something that we can all relate to. And I have to say, although I'm not quite as upset about not having a full battery, having an iPhone 6, it is a bit frustrating when halfway through the day your phone does go flat. So I can relate to it in that extent. But seriously, once again, with life, not just Freemasonry, you need to be careful about what you're doing. Time is really important. In the first degree, as we've mentioned 100 times, we talk about the 24-inch gauge. And that 24-inch gauge is like the battery. It's a 24 hours a day, and you're told, part spent in prayer, part spent in being friendly with a family or friend, part spent in refreshment, part spent in labour. This idea of, even 400 years ago, when the world was slower, when Freemasonry was different, when the expectations of people were different, even then they were teaching the lesson of time management. It's a universal message, and it's something that we should all take very seriously. So maybe you can take that away when you after listening to this podcast, think about, how am I applying my time? What am I doing? And can I do things more efficiently, or is there some things that maybe I shouldn't be doing right now? So that's for your contemplation. But as you're told also in the first degree, it's you're up to you to make a daily advancement in Masonic knowledge. So hopefully these articles are giving you a bit of a modern perspective on the important lesson of time management. The next article we're going to read is also from the Midnight Freemasons blog. In fact, it's the Midnight Freemasons founder, Todd Accretion. Now, I'll just give you a read of Todd Accretion's profile, which is featured on the Midnight Freemasons blog, and it reads as follows. Todd Accretion, 33rd degree, is the founder of the Midnight Freemasons blog and a regular contributor. He's award-winning author of several books and novels, including the famous American Freemason series. He's also the author of From Labour to Refreshment, which is a blog. He's a Worshipful Master of Homer Lodge number 199 and a Past Master of Ogden Lodge number 754, where he currently serves as secretary. He's the Sovereign Master of the East Illinois Council. Look, Todd is a fantastic author. He's a well-renowned author, and in fact he's a 33rd degree Freemason in the United States, which sort of demonstrates his contribution to Freemasonry, especially the Scottish Rite. It's important that you also have your attention drawn to another series that he wrote on the Midnight Freemasons blog, and it was called Bringing Back the Light, which is a great series of articles which Todd wrote about Homer Lodge, which was a lodge that closed and a chapter that closed. And he wrote this fantastic article about how the local Brethren community came together to restore this fantastic Masonic facility and brought back these two fantastic lodges and chapters. So I recommend you jump on the Midnight Freemasons blog and read that. I found it a fantastic series. I think it's a 5-part series of short articles. But anyway, the article we're going to be reading today is actually called The Real Strength of Freemasonry. And Todd Accretion has provided a really good insight into what he believes to be the real benefit of Freemasonry. So without further ado, we'll just get stuck into reading this article by Todd Accretion. I've said it many times before. I was telling somebody the other night that I think one of the greatest strengths of Freemasonry is that A, it gives us the opportunity to use skills we wouldn't normally have the opportunity to use, B, develop skills we wouldn't normally use, C, use skills we already possess to greater effect, and D, have the opportunity to improve ourselves as we work together towards making the world a better place. I went into Freemasonry with well-honed skills in leadership, management, and organisation, which I use in a variety of ways. From Masonry, I've gained skills in writing, researching, speaking, networking and fundraising, as well as some refinements in how I conduct myself and present myself. It should be obvious that I've got a lot more work to do there. And I've been given the opportunity to build on and use some of the skills I have in art and music. But I never really appreciated the self-improvement aspect of the fraternity until recently. I'm aware that I've changed over the years and gained a lot of wisdom from my mentors and teachers, along with a good deal of knowledge from my studies. I've always worked to pass that along to new members, and I think that I've done a pretty good job as a mentor and teacher. Recently I saw an example that really shows me the potential of what Freemasonry is capable of accomplishing in a man's life when properly applied. I've been mentoring a young man for about a year now. He contacted me through the Midnight Freemasons and some questions about the fraternity. Thought it sounded like something he would benefit from, and now he's a new Master Mason. He's very enthusiastic about Freemasonry, and it occurred to me in talking to him why. This is the first time in his life that he's been able to see what he has to offer, see the potential of what he can become, and see the contributions of just what one person can do to make one thing better in the world. And then compounded by joining forces with a group of like-minded men all around with the same desire. The fraternity has opened his eyes, and there's a good chance he'll never be the same again. His life was off track when he joined. Our original conversations were about whether Lodge would even want him. Of course they did, and when he joined, Freemasonry helped put him back on the right track. He's contributing to the work of his lodge, he's helping out in his community. He's got a new job he loves, replaced a few bad habits with some good ones, and is in a new relationship that's much better than the one that got him off the wrong track. He's even begun attending church, which he hadn't done since he was a boy. He's transformed his life, and it's truly been a marvel to see. I might get boozed for this, but it isn't all about doing Freemasonry, like attending events, degrees, and meetings. It's about living Freemasonry, and when given the opportunity, teaching Freemasonry. Those of us who do, who take those ancient teachings and apply them to our life and help others do the same, find the greatest strength in Freemasonry, the path to a well-balanced, peaceful, and happy life. And that was a great article by Todd, and it touches on a slightly different topic, but it's talking about the benefit of mentoring. And this is something I'm really passionate about. Mentoring cannot be underestimated. And I'm not just talking about someone who says, yeah, I'll be your mentor, and if you have any questions, let me know. It's a person who actively takes an interest in a new Freemason's life. Whether it be Freemasonry, let's talk about maybe outside Freemasonry, mentoring, whether it be in work, school, education, family, is so important. Our most early stages of mentoring is the mentoring we get from our parents when we're young. Or for some people, grandparents, when their parents are off at work and you have to stay with your grandparents. Sometimes that might be your earliest form of mentoring. But mentoring is about learning from the character of another, listening to their ideas, taking on their experiences, and developing your character. And what Todd's talking about here is the benefit of being able to mentor someone else in Freemasonry. As running this podcast and also being involved in the Blue Lounge Social Club, I play an active role in mentoring. I have a lot of guys, some older than me, some my age, who actively seek out my advice and guidance about Freemasonry. It's not that I know the answers or I'm necessarily right or wrong, but they take value in seeking my opinion. And honestly, it's one of the most humbling experiences. And I love being able to sort of share my views with these guys and provide some form of mentoring. So for all the brethren out there listening, if you do have the opportunity, no matter how experienced you are in Freemasonry, take on a mentoring role. The contribution you make will be most likely to keep the person involved in the craft. You'll better their life, and you'll also be able to learn a little bit about your life, because by helping others and talking about your experiences, you better reflect on yourself. So mentoring is something that I strongly encourage. And for people out there who are listening who are not Freemasons, this is one of the benefits of Freemasonry. When you join our organisation, you are surrounded by good men who have been tested before they join, good men who have something to offer to your life. And that mentorship, companionship, friendship is something you really can't put a price on. And it's something that I guarantee you'll get something out of. So a great article by Todd. He has written a couple of books. It's mainly based on American Freemasonry, but still something you should check out. And I once again encourage you to get on the Midnight Freemasons blog and have a read. You'll surely enjoy it. I know the Blue Lounge Social Club shares a lot of their articles. If you do write something up, as I have, you may even get published. Let's move away from the Midnight Freemasons for the moment. One of the last articles we're going to be reading tonight, I actually was given to me by a member of the Victorian Lodge of Research. And this particular member gets sent a lot of articles from people all around Australia, frequently because it's one of the most active lodges of research. And this article was written by Brother Stephen of Lodge Germania, number 1036 of the United Grand Lodge of New South Wales and the ACT. From what I understand, he's a fellow craft Freemason, but regardless, he's still writing these fantastic articles about Freemasonry. This article is called Towards a New Golden Age of Masonry, and I really do hope you enjoy it. Towards a New Golden Age of Masonry. To my brother. Our volunteer service he requires, not our necessitated as such with him, finds no exception, nor can find, for how can hearts not free be trialled whether they serve, willing or no, who will, but they must, by Destintine, and can no other choose. John Milton, Paradise Lost, 1667. The 21st Century Masonic Lament. Being a relatively young fellow of only 30 years, it is only natural that I should enjoy reading widely and talking to all the interesting people I meet. Everyone, from the potential candidate joining us at the festive board for the first time, to the most experienced and learned brethren. The subjects and topics of conversation vary wildly, of course, as might be expected from such diverse company, but on more than one occasion I've come across what I've since termed the 21st Century Masonic Lament. Whether directly or obliquely, they allude to a feeling or perception that Masonry just ain't what it used to be. Is it really? I'm afraid I cannot say for sure. Unfortunately, I haven't had the pleasure of being around long enough to experience firsthand the past 600 years of Freemasonry. When the Regis poem was first inscribed on vellum in 1390, nobody sent me a copy. When the 4 English lodges met for dinner in 1717 at the Goose and Gridiron Alehouse to form the Grand Lodge of London and Westminster, I wasn't invited. Nor did I receive an invitation in 1888, when the masters and wardens of the 183 lodges assembled to adopt the Articles of Union, which established the United Grand Lodge of New South Wales, which is now the United Grand Lodge of New South Wales in the Australian Capital Territory. What is it exactly that has changed? The quality of our candidates? The quantity of our brethren? The exclusivity of our fraternity? I think not. The candidates of Masonry is now what they have always been, a diverse men drawn from a cross-section of society who have volunteered of their own free will and accord to undertake the 3 degrees. They are simply a reflection of the wider world which our own fraternity exists. So it is only natural and indeed inevitable that as the world evolves, so will our candidates. So long as they are just, upright, and free men of mature age, sound judgment, and strict morals, we should be happy to consider their petitions. High-quality lodges full of high-quality brethren attracts high-quality candidates. This is a function of social dynamics. The reverse is also true. High qualities of candidates allow high-quality candidates to become initiated, and thus form high-quality lodges. This is a function of mathematical probability. It is a virtuous and self-perpetuating cycle, and the lodge whose members' minds are filled with knowledge, and whose hearts are filled with brotherly love, stand forever, strong against the test of time. I can't believe we let that guy in. I can only speculate as to what was uttered under murmured breath, or lingered at the back of the minds of our operative brethren, all of those centuries ago, when the first gentleman was initiated as speculative masons into that fateful operative lodge. Look at his hands, too soft to have ever put a chisel in a rock, too smooth to have ever toiled a day in the quarries, couldn't tell the difference between a gavel and a mallet. Have we lost our aura of exclusivity? Once again, I think not. Our fraternal ancestors were not aristocrats nor clergy, but labourers who worked the stone with simple hand tools. The exclusivity of their fraternity was one of knowledge regarding mathematics, geometry, and construction methods. Similarly, the speculative masons of today, the exclusivity of our fraternity is also one of knowledge, albeit regarding the self-improvement of character through the practice of brotherly love, relief, and truth. If we should be exclusive, let us be only good men of good character and report, who prize honour and virtue above the external advantages of rank and fortune, scrupulously guarded through the vetting of candidates and the secret ballot. This should make each of us feel very special indeed. If Masonry just what it ain't used to be, this is only because it hasn't been what it used to be for at least 300 years. Otherwise, we'd all be still in the quarries, chiselling stone with gavels. It is only through the process of gradual change that Masonry has remained exactly the same as what it always has been, an adapted and resilient organisation that has withstood the test of time. The Golden Age of Masonry. However, the 21st century Masonic lament reveals a far deeper and more troubling concern among the brethren. It voices a yearning for the past, a dissatisfaction with the present, and a pessimism for the future. It is fear that the Golden Age of Masonry has come and gone, and that the best days of our fraternity lay in the past and not in the future. So just when was the Golden Age of Freemasonry? It's a very tricky question to answer. I posed the question to a variety of experienced and learned brethren, and in turn received an equal variety of answers. Was it during the late medieval 12th to 16th century Gothic period, when the Regis poem was penned and operative masons built magnificent cathedrals, abbeys, castles, and palaces complete with pointed arches, ribbed vaults, and flying buttresses out through rough-hewn rock? Or was it during the 1870 to 1910 Golden Age of Fraternalism, after the end of the American Civil War, when Brother Albert Pike penned his famous Morals and Dogma? Men and women flocked by the thousands to join Masonry and the Order of the Eastern Star. Other fraternal societies, such as the Odd Fellows, also flourished, whilst entirely new ones came into being, including the Benevolent and Protective Order of the Elks and the Loyal Order of the Moose. Perhaps it was during the 1946 to 1964 boomer years, in the aftermath of World War II, when servicemen returned home to settle down and raise new families. Many were hardened men with hearts of stone, cold, heavy, after all the killing they'd done and witnessed on the battlefields. They joined Masonry in search of a brotherhood and camaraderie they experienced during wartime, and in civilian life they found it within our lodges. The huge influx of brethren was such that Masonry reached its peak in terms of absolute members in 1959. This generation of brethren has had a greater and more profound impact on modern Masonry than any other, and their immense influence continues to be felt in every aspect of lodge life. Need I continue? I haven't even mentioned the Renaissance or the Age of Enlightenment, either of which would make fine candidates of being the old Golden Age of Masonry. Nor, I say, for it is pointless, because the Golden Age of Masonry lays not in some imagined, recorded, or dimly remembered past, but in the inevitable future. The world will turn, and the present will pass, but Masonry will remain. May the Golden Age of Masonry remain forever in the future, as something to strive towards, for its best is yet to come. Towards a new Golden Age. The Gothic period, the Renaissance, the Enlightenment, the American Reconstruction, the Boomer years, what do these Golden Ages all have in common? They were all periods of great turmoil, social upheaval, and extremely rapid change. Daily life for the common man was terribly harsh, brutish, and often short. None of these periods seemed to be a golden age for the men on the ground who lived through them. It was only with the benefit of hindsight that we recognise these periods as such, a term bestowed retrospectively, after the period has already ended, and is compared with what follows. It is during these periods of great strife and uncertainty that Masonry truly shines. It is then that our fraternity is needed most. It is then that we stand in sharpest contrast with the profane world around us. If we lived in a perfectly peaceful and harmonious world of brotherly love, relief and truth, there'd be no need for Masonry, because everyone would already be a Mason. Today we live in a chaotic world at war with itself, seemingly adrift without a working moral compass, desperately searching for real and meaningful values, yet unable to find any. It is an age of extremely rapid social, technological and economic change, seemingly without any direction or clear objective. We have bestowed upon ourselves the instruments of mankind's own potential destruction, very real today, but completely unimaginable even 100 years ago. But yet there is a ray of hope. We have survived thus far and may yet survive a little longer. For 600 years, there has been an order of men which history has shown to be adaptable and resilient, who profess to be just, upright and free, who profess to practice the tenets of brotherly love, relief and truth, who are now able to communicate with each other at close to the speed of light using an AES 256 encryption. To see, speak and write to each other just as clearly and as easily and as securely from Sydney, London, New York or Hong Kong as if they were in the same room. So, dear brother, fear not the young men knocking on the doors of Freemasonry today, for they will be the Masons of tomorrow. They must become the standard bearers of our fraternity, for it is only they who carry on our great work, our legacy, our traditions, and our hopes for a better tomorrow. If they are in darkness, enlighten them. If they are ignorant, teach them. If they are fearful, demonstrate by example the virtues of brotherly love. On the other hand, if we spurn them, they may not return. If we ignore them, they may lead themselves astray. If we fail them, they may become disappointed in our fraternity. Masonry is not and has never been just a big social club. It's not a charity or a service organisation, nor is it just a set of rituals buried deep within the heads and written down in books. It is an adaptable and resilient philosophy for the strong, a way of life that beacons to be practiced. Let us remind ourselves every time we remove the cable tow from a newly initiated brother that the bonds that truly bind cannot be perceived by the eye that receives physical light. May we live with the faith to preserve, striving towards hope of a new golden age of Masonry, through the charity of voluntary service to the great architect of the universe. And I hope you enjoy that article by Brother Stephen F.W. of Lodge Germania, which is number 1036 on the Register of the United Grand Lodge of New South Wales and the Australian Capital Territory. I thought it was a fascinating article, and I remember when I first read it, I thought, this person has really thought about what it means when we hear that all-time phrase, the good old days. And it doesn't matter which jurisdiction you belong to, whether it be Victoria, another state of Australia, New South Wales, or even overseas. It's something that's said often. And it's not just about Freemasonry. Even in life, you hear the good old days all the time. And I think that Brother Stephen hit it on the head. We look at things through the rosy lenses of the past. We put on these retrospective glasses and we label things and we give them, this sort of enhanced significance, because with retrospect, things are always seen in 2020 vision, but it's when you're living these things that you somehow don't realise the significance of the period in which you're being involved. I have to say, though, I really don't think that is the case today. I think people genuinely know how significant the time we're in now, and I've said this 1,000 times. We live in one of the most exciting times to be alive. Technological changes are altering the way we communicate, the way we do our basic daily human things. And one of the most exciting parts about that is that the future becomes irresistibly unpredictable. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, but we are hearkened to the fact that with change and modern development and the pace in which change is happening, that we're able to be excited about the significance of the time we're in. And one thing that I like to think when I wake up in the morning is, how can I make a contribution and leave a legacy that is going to really make its mark? Whether it's just a legacy to your friends and family, or maybe broader. Some people have higher aspirations. But this is the sort of concept that we need to remember, that the good old days are good. It's fine to reflect on the past, but we need to remember the significance of the times in which we live, which leads then to Stephen's point, which is an excitement for the future. Relating that to Freemasonry, I think that it is an exciting time to be a Freemason, especially here in Victoria. We are undergoing an important period of change. The baby boomers who made up the huge numbers of Freemasons in Victoria and around the world, their kids didn't join. Their kids just simply did not join Freemasonry. There's a lot of arguments as to why, but we're not going to go into that right now. But the point I'm making is a new generation, not related or distantly related to that generation of baby boomers, has come. And they're joining the craft, and they're ready to take the baton that is happening in the virtual sort of relay race of Freemasonry, and they're ready to take it on to the next generation. And that's something we're trying to do with this podcast. That's something the Blue Lounge Social Club is trying to do. And that's the exact sort of thing that is being implemented across the world in terms of our craft. So to our older listeners, and I don't mean older in any denigrating way, just to our more experienced listeners perhaps, rest assured, the future of Freemasonry is bright. The times we are living in are exciting. And if we can look to those positive moments in Freemasonry, the good old days will be put back into perspective. And with that, I really do hope you've enjoyed episode 12 of the Brought to Light Masonic podcast. It is something different. We wanted to sort of canvass these issues that you might be feeling, the internal struggles that we have with any commitment we make in life. And I hope you've enjoyed the articles and the breadth of topics we've covered. From this point onwards, we will be heading off to further topics that deal with the practicalities of Freemasonry after you finish your third degree. What do you do? Where do you go? What office do you take, if you take office at all? What about the other orders? What about leadership development? These are the sort of questions we'll be answering. So, until next time, thank you very much for listening to the Brought to Light Masonic podcast. I'm your host, Brother Jack Aquilina, and I know we'll speak again soon.
You've been listening to the Brought to Light Masonic podcast, bringing you to light through discussions and research papers about Australian Freemasonry and the Victorian jurisdiction in particular. We look forward to speaking to you on our next edition. And until then, we are happy to meet, sorry to part, and happy to meet again.